You have thought about this more carefully than almost anyone alive, not because you are paranoid, because you are rational, because you spent 20 years in an industry built on identifying risks before they materialize and pricing them correctly and acting on the analysis before everyone else does. You made your first 100 million doing exactly that. You made the rest doing it at scale. And now you are applying the same framework to the largest risk variable in your personal portfolio, which is the question of whether the civilization that produced your wealth will still be functioning in 10 years. Your conclusion, arrived at after several years of reading the research and consulting the people who build the models and sitting in rooms with other people who have run the same analysis, is that the question is genuinely open, not alarmist. Open. The probability of a significant civilizational disruption within the next 2 decades from any combination of climate catastrophe, engineered pandemic, nuclear exchange, or artificial intelligence misalignment is not negligible. It is not 1%. You would not take a 1% risk seriously enough to build a bunker. The number your analysts have given you is higher than that, high enough that the expected value calculation on serious preparation is positive. So you prepared, seriously, rationally, expensively. This is your life at the end of the world. The acquisition phase, New Zealand first. Everyone who runs this analysis arrives at New Zealand eventually. It is an enemy of no one. It has not been a nuclear target since the Cold War and was barely won then. It is geographically remote from every major conflict zone. It is a functioning first-world democracy with agricultural self-sufficiency, clean water, and a population of 5 million people whose government has not collapsed in living memory. It is, by the metrics that matter for this purpose, the most survivable developed nation on Earth. You arrange citizenship through the investment visa program. 5 million New Zealand dollars, a minimum number of days per year in the country, and a passport that means you can board a private aircraft the moment the relevant alert condition is triggered and be on the ground in Auckland within 18 hours. Your plane can refuel twice without landing at a commercial airport. The refueling stops are prearranged. The pilots are on retainer. They know the protocol. They do not ask questions about the protocol. The property is on the South Island. 1,200 acres, a working farm on the surface, which is both cover and function. The farm produces food. The food is real. You are not pretending to be a farmer. You are a farmer who also has 4 meters of reinforced concrete beneath the main building and 150 tons of steel below that, and inside that steel, a facility that took 3 years to construct, and that your architect, who signed an extremely comprehensive non-disclosure agreement, describes as the most complex residential project of his career. The facility has its own water supply, geothermal heating, a hydroponic growing system that can sustain 20 people indefinitely on a rotating crop cycle, a surgical suite, a dental chair, because the people who think about this carefully think about the dental chair, a communications array that does not depend on commercial satellite infrastructure, a fuel reserve sufficient for 5 years of generator operation, and a seed vault, because the people who built this facility read the same papers as the people who built the one in Svalbard and reached the same conclusions about the importance of agricultural continuity. The bunker cost $11.5 million. This represents approximately 4 hours of your current annual income. The expected value calculation was not difficult. The guard problem. Here is the question that nobody who hasn't thought about this carefully realizes is the actual hard problem. The bunker is built. The food supply is secured. The water is clean. The communications are working. The medical equipment is calibrated. You have enough fuel and enough seeds and enough freeze-dried protein and enough of everything material to sustain 20 people for 5 years or longer. The hard problem is the guards. You need people to protect the facility, not from the abstract threat of civilizational collapse, but from the specific and concrete threat of the several billion. People who will be outside the facility when the collapse occurs and who will not be inside it. You need people who are capable of violence in service of keeping those people outside. And you need those people to remain loyal to you in an environment where the currency you use to purchase loyalty, which is money, has potentially ceased to function. You have asked this question in rooms with other people who have built similar facilities. It is the question that generates the most interesting conversations. The consensus answer is not reassuring. Money works as a loyalty mechanism when money is the medium of exchange for things people need. If what people need is no longer purchasable with money, then the loyalty money purchase dissolves. A guard with a weapon who no longer has a reason to follow your instructions is a threat, not an asset. The proposed solutions are uncomfortable to discuss, and you discuss them anyway because the alternative is not discussing them and arriving at the wrong answer. One solution is to recruit guards whose families are inside the facility, creating a direct material interest in its protection. Another is to structure the facility's resources so that the guards have exclusive access to certain supplies contingent on continued service. Another is to select guards based on ideological or personal loyalty that predates and supersedes the financial relationship. None of these solutions is clean. All of them are being implemented by people who have thought about this problem seriously. You chose the family model. Your security team is 12 people. Their families, 31 individuals in total, are pre-cleared for the facility. Their children's names are on the list. This changes the nature of the loyalty calculation in a direction you find more reliable than money. You are not comfortable with everything this implies. You implement it anyway. The network. You are not doing this alone. There is no formal organization, no membership card, no round table. There are dinners at estates and on yachts and in the private dining rooms of clubs that do not publish their membership lists, where the conversation eventually arrives at the same place it always arrives. The models, the timelines, the variables that are tracking in the wrong direction. The question of whether the people around this table are being rational or paranoid, and the specific discomfort of not being able to tell with confidence. A writer was once brought to a desert meeting to talk about the future of technology. He arrived expecting to give a speech. The 5 men in the room did not want a speech. They wanted to know which was the better refuge, New Zealand or Alaska, and whether the risk from climate was higher than the risk from biological agents, and whether a shelter needed its own independent air supply. He wrote about it later. He found it disturbing. You read his account and found it accurate. The people in these rooms are not villains in the way the public imagines villains. They are not rubbing their hands together. They are people who built extraordinary things and understand, from the experience of building extraordinary things, that complex systems fail in ways that are not obvious until they fail, and that the failure modes of civilizational systems are not categorically different from the failure modes of the software systems and financial systems and logistics systems they spent their careers working on. The preparation is not an expression of malice toward the people who will be outside the facility. It is the logical conclusion of a risk analysis run by people who are very good at risk analysis and who have the resources to act on the output. Whether that justifies it is a different question. Nobody in these rooms asked that question directly. You have asked it yourself privately, at night, in the main house on the New Zealand property while the farm was quiet and the stars were extraordinary and the facility below was humming on its geothermal supply. You have not arrived at a satisfying answer. The life you are living now. It is not a bunker life yet. The bunker is for the contingency. The life you are living now is your normal life, which happens to include a property in New Zealand, and a passport from a second country, and a pilot on retainer, and an alert system that monitors 17 different risk indicators and sends you a notification on a specific device that is separate from your regular phone when any indicator crosses a threshold. The device has not sent a notification yet. You check it every morning. This has become the first thing you do when you wake up, before email, before news. The check of the device that tells you whether the world has crossed a threshold while you were asleep. It has not yet. You had corrective eye surgery 3 years ago, not for vanity, for function. Glasses require infrastructure. Optometrists require a functioning economy. If you are in the facility for an extended period, you need your vision to work without external support. This seemed, to the people who know about it, like an extreme precaution. To you, it seemed like the obvious conclusion of thinking clearly about dependencies. You are very good at identifying dependencies. It is most of what you spent your career doing. Your children know about the facility in the way that children of wealthy parents know about things they are not fully told. They know there is a property in New Zealand. They know there is a plan. They do not know all of the details of the plan because the details are not appropriate for the ages they currently are. They will know more when they are older. The plan includes them. Their names are on the list. This is not a comfort you allow yourself to feel too fully, because feeling it fully requires imagining the circumstances under which the list becomes relevant. Your staff knows some of it. Your personal assistant knows the evacuation protocol. Your head of security knows all of it. Your partners at the fund know some of it. Most of your friends, the ones who are not in the network, know none of it. You do not discuss it at dinner parties. The conversation at dinner parties is about restaurants and children's schools and the political situation, and occasionally about the market. You participate in these conversations normally. You are good at participating normally in conversations whose subtext is the fragility of the system that makes the conversation possible. The trigger. You have defined the trigger precisely because a trigger that is not defined precisely is not a trigger. It is a feeling. Feelings make people hesitate. Hesitation in a genuine emergency is the difference between getting on the plane and not getting on the plane. The trigger is a composite of 17 indicators. Any 3 of the primary indicators crossing their threshold simultaneously initiates the protocol. The protocol has phases. Phase 1 is the alert. Phase 2 is the family assembly, which has a specific procedure and a specific timeline and a specific meeting point that everyone in your immediate family knows from memory. Phase 3 is the aircraft. Phase 4 is New Zealand. You have run the protocol as a drill, once a year. Your family knows the procedure the way children in previous generations knew fire drill procedures. The first time you ran it, your youngest child, who was 6 at the time, found it frightening. You explained it as a kind of adventure preparation. The explanation was not dishonest. It was not fully honest either. The 17 indicators are monitored by an analyst whose entire job is the monitoring. She sends you a weekly report. The report uses a traffic light system: green, amber, red. The report has been amber on 3 indicators for the last 14 months. 2 of the amber indicators are AI related. 1 is geopolitical. None of them has crossed the primary threshold. The composite has not triggered. You read the report every Monday. You note the amber indicators. You go about your week. What the facility cannot contain. Here is the thing you know and do not say in the rooms with the other people who have built similar facilities. The facility can sustain 20 people for 5 years. The agricultural system can extend that indefinitely if it functions as designed, and if the people operating it have the right knowledge, and if no critical component fails in a way that cannot be repaired with the materials available. These are significant ifs. They are manageable ifs. You have planned for them. What you cannot plan for is what 5 years in a facility does to 20 people. You have read the psychology literature on extreme isolation. You know what confined environments produce. You know the interpersonal dynamics of groups under sustained stress. You know what happens to hierarchies when external validation of those hierarchies disappears. You are, by wealth and position and the specific gravity of the facility itself, the most powerful person in that room. You are also the person that 20 other people will hold responsible for every decision made in that room for 5 years. The psychological weight of that is not in the engineering specifications. You have a therapist in the facility plan, not a pre-recorded video. An actual person, credentialed, whose family is also on the list, who will be there for the duration. This was, the other people in the network thought, an unusual inclusion. You thought it was the most important inclusion after the water supply. The other thing the facility cannot contain is the question of what you are going back to. 5 years. Assuming the trigger scenario resolves, assuming the world above the facility is navigable again. What is above the facility? What remains of the system that generated your wealth? What is the status of the assets that exist only as numbers in financial systems that require functioning infrastructure to be legible? What is the status of the property you own in cities that may have experienced things that property is not designed to experience? You have run this analysis too. The conclusions are not encouraging. Your wealth in a genuine civilizational disruption scenario is largely fictitious. It exists in systems. The systems require the civilization. If the civilization has partially or fully failed, the number that represents your net worth is a number in a system that may not be running. What you actually have is the property, the seeds, the food, the water, the skills of the 20 people in the facility with you, the guard loyalty you have purchased with the inclusion of 31 family members, the medical equipment, the seeds. You are, in the scenario for which you have prepared, approximately as wealthy as a competent medieval estate holder. This is both more than most people will have in that scenario and an extraordinary reduction from what you have now. You hold this knowledge with the same professional equanimity you hold every other uncomfortable analysis. You note it. You do not resolve it because it cannot be resolved from this side of the trigger. You file it. The thing you cannot say out loud. There is a writer who wrote a book about people like you. He was in the desert with 5 of them, and they asked him about guards and about New Zealand and about air supplies, and eventually he asked them a question back. He asked what they were going to do about the people outside. The people outside. The billions of people who will not be in a facility, who have not built a facility, who do not have a pilot on retainer or a property in New Zealand or a list with their children's names on it, who are, in the scenario you have prepared for, outside, in whatever is outside. Nobody in the room answered that question directly. The conversation moved on. It always moves on. You think about this question more than the others do. Or perhaps they think about it equally and also do not say it. You cannot know. The question does not have an answer that the facility provides. The facility provides for 20 people. 20 people is not an answer to the question of the people outside. It is a refusal of the question, a bracketing of it, a decision made with extraordinary resources and considerable thought to make the question someone else's problem. You made your money by identifying what other people had not yet seen, by acting on analysis that the market had not yet priced, by being consistently and over a long career slightly ahead of the information curve. You are slightly ahead of the information curve on this too. You know things about the fragility of the system that most of the people living inside it do not know. You have acted on the analysis. The facility is built. The passport is obtained. The pilot is on retainer. The device is checked every morning. The device has not sent a notification yet. You close the app. You open your email. The morning is ordinary. The farm above the facility is producing food. The world is doing what the world does, which is continuing, improbably and stubbornly, to function. You go about your day. You check the device again at noon. You check it at 6. You check it before you sleep. It has not sent a notification. Not yet.